Yeah, bro. Can you hear me? No, there's going to be no video, right? Or do you have video capability? Yeah. Hey, mate. Boom. There we go. All right. Hi. Here we are, Isaac Savage, GladrapChannel, GladraP Studios with the notorious Dan the Hangman Hooker. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, good. Just hanging out here at the hotel in Melbourne, man.
Where are you staying in Melbourne?
They got us at the Crown Metropole, so it's a pretty swanky joint, to be honest.
Not too far from the Rod Laver Arena?
No, it's not that far away. They take care of all the transport and things like that, so we don't have to worry too much.
Mate, it's an honour to be talking to you right now. We really appreciate time. We know you've got a busy schedule, so we won't keep you too long today. Just relatively, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, pretty informal. It's just a good way for the New Zealand fans and other fans across the world to see a quick glimpse of you and how the build-up's been to the UFC.
Yeah, definitely. Anything for the New Zealand fans, man. I'm trying to build the sport as much as I can, doing what I can on my side to give the New Zealand fighters as much exposure as possible because I think they deserve it.
In terms of that, you know, with you building the brand and building the awareness for UFC and New Zealand fighters, have you seen a bit of a change in media supporting or getting behind you more in the last maybe, I don't know, 24, 12 months?
There's always been that core group of people in the media, the guys running the combat sports page on Facebook. There's been pockets of guys like Dan Richardson working for the Herald, you know. There's been these people that have been there the whole time, putting time and effort into giving the UFC, MMA in general, more exposure in New Zealand. So they've always been there. I see it moving towards more mainstream. You know, when you turn the TV on or watch 3 News and they're reporting on Conor McGregor, it kind of gives you, that's where they can start, and then we can build it up. It brings awareness, so it's moving in the right direction, definitely.
And mate, you're obviously born and bred Auckland. What's it been like going from, you're a Westie, a West Aucklander? Or Central?
Live in Mount Roskill.
Okay, well more central. What's it been like going from Auckland, in a case, to, you know, the glitz and glam of the UFC, fighting on, you know, I guess, wouldn't say underground fight scenes, but more so the lower key, few hundred people turn up, to being under the bright lights of the UFC?
I think that's why it hasn't been as much of a shock to me, because I've put everything into every fight my entire career. I'm fighting in a bar in front of 50 people. To me, that fight is, I treat it like a world championship, and I've been doing that my entire career. Like, every fight, I've taken that seriously. I've treated it like a world championship. So now I get to the UFC level, and, you know, people ask, oh, so you're going to start taking it seriously now? No, I've been taking it seriously since day one, since when I started this career. It's been everything to me. It's been my 100% focus. So nothing changes. Pressure you put on yourself, like, pressure is an internal thing. You're under as much pressure as you mentally put yourself under. So if you can control that, like a tap, the amount of pressure you put on yourself, if you're feeling a bit too much pressure, if you can have the ability to control that pressure, then that's what's gonna help you when you get into the, like, more exposed environments.
Mate, that was brilliant. I mean, you sound like you've been doing a bit of sports psychology. Or one of the questions I wanted to ask is, you know, obviously the physical training's tough in terms of, you know, the routine, but how serious are you taking the mental game now? Are you using any elements of NLP, meditation, or sports psychology to further your MMA progression?
You know, that's definitely something I've looked in to and developed. The mental side is massive. It's the analogy of, you know, you lie a bit of 4x2 on the ground, and then you walk across that. You're going to walk across it no trouble. You throw that bit of 4x2 20 stories high, and you get someone to walk across it. That task becomes a lot more difficult. But did the task change? the task is exactly the same, but the environment is drastically different. It's the same thing with fighting. What you're doing in the gym every day shouldn't be any different. You know, you're sparring twice a week. You're putting yourself under that amount of pressure on a consistent basis. So when it comes to fight time, when it comes to fight night, nothing changes, and I can control the amount of pressure that I feel. That's a big change that I've made recently, is being more consistent in the gym, being consistent every day, treating every day, you know, my sparring sessions like a fight, focusing, mentally kind of locking in. I warm up for my sparring session like I'm warming up for a fight. I run through the walkout, I run through, you know, the pat down, talking to my coaches, getting in the cage. I treat it all the same as fight night, so it's second nature when I actually step in the octagon. I've been there 1,000 times before, and I've run through that moment a million times. So nothing changes, it's consistency.
Well said, mate. You're sounding a little bit like a guy who ran into the other night called Israel Adesanya, and I did see a clip of you and him sparring, and you know, he's obviously well known, a real great striker, but you look like you're pulling off a few moves that were giving him a run for his money.
Oh man, me and Izzy have fun in the gym. We're just mucking around, man. That's kind of how we have fun. We hadn't seen each other in, I think, 6 months, so that's kind of how me and Izzy say hello to each other.
I saw you look away for a second, and you looked at the you looked at the camera, you looked away, and then got back into it. It was actually quite nice to watch.
Yeah, we're just messing with each other, man.
Speaking of that, we were at King of the Ring the other night. Obviously, where Davor Matarujic took that out in the Super Cruiser. But from my understanding, you've taken part in the King of the Ring New Zealand as well.
Yeah, I fought in the middleweight 72 kg series and won that a few years ago, I think 2012.
Who did you face in the final, and did you do it, you know, the hardcore, super tough route of doing all 9 rounds, or how did you go through each fight in order to become the king that night?
The first one, I was lucky and cut the guy, so it was a stoppage fairly quickly. I went to a 3-round fight for my second fight against Victor Mechkov. We went to the 3rd round, and then in the final, I fought Edwin Sami in the final, and won that in a round. So yeah, it's a different thing fighting 3 fights in one night. Like, the mental thing changes. You win a fight, but you kind of can't let yourself get overexcited, because then the next thing that's coming is that adrenaline dump, and then you have to start warming up again and prepare for another fight.
Yeah, it's an incredible tournament to watch, and amazingly, you just mentioned Victor Slick Rick, who's just previously won a King of the Ring as well. So you're fighting guys, fighting the top of the top in New Zealand. One of the things I was quite curious about, and a lot of the New Zealand fans, what's it like making that jump from the New Zealand fight scene, even Oceania, to the elite of the elite? You're fighting pretty much the murderer's row of the UFC payroll, because even getting onto the UFC is no easy feat. So what's it been like, that leap from New Zealand, fighting the caliber here, to then facing the best in the world?
I think being in New Zealand, you start fighting internationally very young in your career. You're competing internally, and it's actually quite difficult to amass, you know, a pretty record in New Zealand. Everyone fights everyone. Everyone's tough. Everyone takes fights. I think New Zealand's not a place you go to polish your record. Like, not many people. Oh, I'll go to. You know, they might, you know, go to a different country to rack up a few wins and get a few wins under their belt. But New Zealand is the last place that you want to come and make your record nice, because New Zealand fighters are tough. I think we have some of the best fighters in the world, and we have a great scene in New Zealand because we're exposed very early to an international fight scene. You know, my 3rd fight was a fight in Australia against a guy from Japan. So I've been fighting internationally like a very long time, so our game grows real rapidly.
Yeah, I've noticed that you did all you could really do in New Zealand. You were, you know, you won King of the Ring. You're fighting guys way out of your weight zone, which we've seen which it's a whole nother story in itself. You know, I saw you spar Ants Nansen, who's, I don't know, probably 20 or 30 kg on you, and that other fight with the guy that was over the 100 mark, and you were about, what, 70 kg, and you got caught up last minute. What happened there?
Yeah, we had a main event. My gym was putting on a show. The main event got injured, one of the heavyweights. So I jumped in. I think it was just over 80 kilo. The other guy was about 120 something. So I jumped in, took that on a couple of days' notice. It's all fun and games in New Zealand, man.
Man, that's incredible. It's talk about last minute call up, but hey, you had the kahunas and you did it. What do you know about your opponent? I had a quick look. Is it Joe the Kid White?
Jason Knight.
Jason Knight, sorry. And he obviously from the States. Similar record to yourself. You've got the 6 wins via TK and then the 6 submissions. His are mostly submission. Knowing a little bit about if he has a grappler MMA style like that, would you change your game somewhat, or are you just going to go in there as you always do?
Definitely, you'll try to direct the fight. Fighting is about the path of least resistance. So if someone striking is poor, well then obviously I'm going to stand with them. I like to think that I'm very well rounded. I have a strong ground game and a strong striking game. So wherever he's weakest, I will take the fight there and be able to control the fight. This whole game is the path of least resistance. So if I see a hole in your game and I see something that I'm far better than you at, then I'm going to take the fight there.
We noticed you fought in New Zealand. I was actually here for that, and you probably had half your Auckland crowd here for that fight too. But Melbourne's not too far away. It's only slightly across the ditch. Have you got a contingent coming over? And is it the same or more or less pressure fighting over there as to here? Because there's still a large amount of Kiwis over there.
It's just support, man. There's a ton of Kiwis in Melbourne. So it's going to be great to step in the octagon, raise the New Zealand flag, and hear all those Kiwis screaming. Every time, you know, I walked out and I raised that flag in Brisbane, and I damn near felt like 70% of the crowd were Kiwis when I started lifting that flag and hearing them yelling and hearing them screaming and hearing the response. So I think it's not just for me, but it's an important part to see that flag from a New Zealand fighter being represented inside the octagon. Like, the fans really enjoy it, and they love making noise for it.
Speaking of you know, the New Zealand fans and New Zealand fighters, there's pretty much an elite squad of NZ fighters on the UFC payroll list at the moment. With the recent fight in New Zealand, Kai Kara France, were you watching the whole build-up and the Ultimate Fighter when that was screening, and how close are you and Kai Kara?
Yeah, man, I've been training with Kai since he was, I don't know, 16 years old, and you know, I was one of the older guys as he came through, and I was, you know, I coached Kai early on in his career, so to see him get to this level, you know, he's been working out in Tiger Muay Thai for the last 5-6 years, so I know what that kid's capable of and how talented he is, and he's going to be a star. He's going to be a massive name in the UFC. It's just a matter of time. It's not an if, it's a when.
Speaking of other New Zealand athletes, we've got a huge fight coming up here on the 10th, I think it's of December, Joseph Parker. We love asking Kiwi fighters what they think of other fighters. What are your thoughts on him, and how do you think he's going to go for that world title?
100%. To see a New Zealand fighter fighting for a boxing heavyweight world championship is just a massive deal. 100% behind Joseph Parker, and he's, you know, I 100% think he's going to be get the win, and I'm supporting him, man. Just to see Kiwis in combat sports doing big things is we help each other out as much as we can.
And where you're training at the moment, the Saigon Fight Centre, what's that like? Is it a little bit different from Tiger Muay Thai and Vietnam in itself? How are you finding you've lived obviously in Southeast Asia for a little bit, but what's Vietnam like and the Saigon Fight Centre?
I haven't been in Saigon for a year and a half, I don't think.
Oh, sorry, so where are you based now?
Tiger Muay Thai. So I'm living in Phuket, Thailand, training at Tiger Muay Thai full time. I've been there the last 8 months, and there's some tough Kiwis out there. Kai trains there, Brad Riddell, very well known, very talented New Zealand kickboxing champion. He's a striking coach out at Tiger Muay Thai, and there's just, man, streams of New Zealand fighters coming through, training and coming out there to work with us. So it's getting more and more Kiwis. We kind of got like a little Kiwi contingent out in Thailand, living on the same street, working at the same gym.
Yeah, I was going to say, mentioned Brad Riddell. He's been an up-and-comer too, and you're training with the likes of him. Would you guys be similar weight categories? You'd walk around a little bit heavier than Brad?
No, I fight at 66. He fights about 76.
Wow, the height is such a misconception for you. You are super tall. And obviously you cut prior. You're looking really good. You're full of energy, and you look like you're eating something at the moment. But the next couple of days, will it get a bit tougher for the weight cut? I'm a
professional year-round in this sport, so the weight cut does not faze me very much. I don't stop eating. I don't, dehydrate. I do things the smart way. I do things properly. I do them like a professional. So then it's easy when you act like a professional and you're dieting year-round. When you're leaving it to the last minute and you're treating this half-assed, you're out there eating fast food couple weeks out, and then you have to starve to make weight, then you feel the cut, then you feel like rubbish leading into the fight. When you treat this like a professional sport and you act like a professional athlete, this weight cut does not affect me very much at all. It's just a process that I go through. It's down to a science, man. The people I've got behind me helping it out they make my life very easy.
Is that via the guys at Tiger Muay Thai? Have you got a sports nutritionist or specialist that helps you along the way with that?
You're making me give up all my secrets.
Oh, okay, no, go.
No, I'm joking. Now there's Kiwi Sue Gullery, man. She's she helps me out massively. She's got this thing down to a science. She plans everything out. She plans out the weight cut. She plans out the rehydration process. She gives me my advice, tells me when to eat things, what time, how much. So taking that advice of a professional who someone that knows their stuff and you can trust is just such a key asset. It's funny because we think we might be behind the times in New Zealand, but I think the opposite. In terms of nutrition, weight cutting, and what some of the guys are doing in New Zealand, we're ahead of the 8 ball in terms of striking and striking ability, striking knowledge in New Zealand on a global scale. Man, we're light years ahead of some of these people, man.
Well, and you're so right. Given the size of the place as well, New Zealanders definitely punch above their weight. The likes of yourself, Kai Kara, Israel. You're doing fantastic on the global scene, and you're just ripping up a storm. What would you have to say back to your Kiwi fans, obviously here in Auckland, across New Zealand, and those watching around the world?
Man, tune into the fight. Check the fight out. This is going to be massive. Get behind me. Get behind New Zealand MMA. We have the most talented fighters in the world. That's something 100%. And it's just a matter of time till we're all doing well. So get to know your fighters, get to know the local guys on the local scene, because you'll see them on an international level soon doing big things, and you want to say that you were supporting these guys since day one. And that's the best part about fighting is you start following them and you see their growth as a fighter. You see them develop over time. And you follow their career. That's the best thing you can get out of following combat sports. Just supporting your fighter through thick and thin. So get out there, get to know your local fighters, support them, and make some noise for New Zealand combat sports.
Where can fighters find you on Instagram and Twitter if you're into those tools at the moment? Where would they go to follow you?
Yeah, Dan Hangman on Instagram, Dan the Hangman on Twitter, and Dan Hangman Hooker on Facebook. So get on there, give me a follow.
Beautiful. I'll be doing that straight away. If I don't already or haven't already been following you, we'll we really appreciate your time today. I know it's only a couple of days out, and we wish you all the best this 27th in Melbourne UFC.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, buddy. We'll chat soon.
Cheers.
Oh, stick around. Are you going to stop recording? Sign out. I'll just sign out and then we'll come back. Oh. I just wanted to chat to him casually. Yeah. Well, there you have it, guys. Dan the Hangman Hooker fighting this Sunday, New Zealand time, around about it's early morning, so double check that. Starts at 10 a.m. in Melbourne. That's the 27th, this Sunday. Catch it on Fight Pass, Sky TV. We'll be there live. Isaac Savage, GladrapChannel.